Yeah. I am back from Egypt, which, if you didn't know, that is what this video is going to be about. I wanted to do an Egypt recap for you all because, truthfully and honestly, from the bottom of my soul, it was the most incredible trip I have been on in my entire life. Bar none. Hands down. It's honestly was just incredible, and I'm still trying to find the words to talk about it. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about it. Before we get started, I do want to give you guys a little incensey clearage. There you go. Let's clear your energy a little bit. I always have incense burning when I film these, and I figured I would just kind of share the love of that with you all. So again, if you don't want it, you can just not receive it. But there you go. Little energy clearing for all of us to kind of set the tone and set the space. Pop some popcorn. This is going to be like a very extended kind of story time. I'm going to try to go through day by day. I will say that this video won't be literally everything that happened in Egypt because there's a couple experiences that I'm going to dedicate full and complete videos to, but this will be a good amount of those experiences. This video will cover the gist, a lot of the takeaways, the experience as a whole of what it is to be a psychic in Egypt. To go be a psychic at these sacred sites, yeah, it's incredibly special. Also, if you don't know me, hi, I'm Emily. I'm a professional psychic activator. I'm your spirit guide, basically. I also really love to do channeled history, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about in this video. Okay, cool. Pull up a chair, grab a coffee or champagne or a glass of red. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Some festive juice, perhaps. Get a snuggly blanket. Sit and hang out with me, and we're going to talk all about Egypt. Before we get into the actual experience of what the Egypt trip was like and the premise and all of the things that happened on the Egypt trip, I do have a couple things I want to take care of. The first of which is to thank my incredible patrons. My Patreon is the place to get a lot of updates from me. I do a lot of fun things in there, whether it's bonus content or polls on content. Monthly meditations are in that space. My intuitive initiate patrons, which was my top tier patrons, get a shout out in my videos. They also get a Q&A call with me every month where we really dive in. It's just a really fun, beautiful space to craft and connect with spiritual community. So I'm so thankful for my patrons. I'm especially thankful for my intuitive initiates, which are my top tier patrons. Thank you to Alex, Alexandria, Angela, Cheryl, Danny, Danielle, Caradwin, Marie, Marla, Meg, and Rhiannon. You guys are the best. You allow me to make these videos, and I am so grateful for all of your support and love on all of my content and in my space. Man, my incense is fucking popping off. Like, these don't usually burn this intense, but I guess we really need this like mystery aura of smokiness all around me for this video, which, I mean, it's fitting. We were talking about Egypt after all. The other thing I want to say, just right off of the bat, if you hear this video and watch this story time and you feel a pull in your heart to travel with us, first of all, yay, we always want to travel with more people. And second of all, it is the absolute best way to take a huge jump in your spiritual abilities, in your connectedness to yourself, in your journey forward to, like, if you want to move to the next chapter, traveling in a group setting that is a spiritual retreat at the same time, being around people that completely, not only unequivocally accept you for exactly who you are, period, but also want to hear what you have to say, want to hear your pings, want to help in your growth. That is the environment that is fostered on these trips and these adventures. And I can't even begin to express the depth of my gratitude for that. I know that it's something obviously that I have a hand in creating and putting energy towards. So does Krista, my business partner. They also put a lot of energy towards that. I mean, these are our favorite things to do, is do these trips, but also it's the people that come. We always put an energetic filter over these trips of like the right people being on them. And that's what we've always gotten. In Egypt was no exception, and our future trips are also going to be no exception to that as well. Not to mention we have incredible guides. The trip is the best way to travel I have ever experienced in my life. I've traveled quite a bit in my life. I have a long history of that kind of within my family. We were big travelers, and I've traveled solo travel, that kind of thing, and I cannot recommend enough doing a trip like this. Not only does it help you feel very safe and seen in these places where you maybe don't speak the language or you feel uncomfortable in the culture, you don't know a lot of stuff, but also it's having someone handle everything for you and craft these incredible experiences. The difference in our Trova trips versus other like tour group style tours that I've done, on those other tour group style tours, you feel like a tourist. You feel like you're going to see the touristy things, and though they're really cool and you might get a lot out of them, you still feel that touristy energy. That's just deeply not the case with Trova. You feel like you are there being assimilated in the culture, being respectful to the culture. You feel like you're getting these kind of exclusive experiences, because you are, honestly, in a lot of ways. And they are so deep and beautiful and meaningful every step of the way. And Egypt was my third Trova trip, my third time hosting a trip, and I will never stop as long as people keep wanting to travel with me. I want to travel with you, because there is truly no better way to travel together. And on that note, as far as no better way to travel together, we are heading to Japan in August, and we do have a couple spots open that we really are trying to fill to make sure that this trip happens in the Trova trip style. So if you feel a call at the end of this video, if you're like, oh my gosh, I want to experience something like that, Japan is going to be just as magical as Egypt was. I promise you. We're going to shrines. We're going to do a lot of food stuff. We're going to some of the oldest neighborhoods in all of Tokyo. We're going to do a lot of channel history, but we're really focusing this Japan trip on your higher self, on helping you understand your soul journey, and your higher self, and how those things interact. It is a spiritual adventure. It is really completely going to launch your journey upwards, and it's going to be really powerful and really impactful for all the people that are on it. And I can say that with my whole chest. You will come back more confident in who you are, more confident in your connection with spirit, and more confident in your understanding of how to move forward. And honestly, you'll also have amazing, incredible memories in a beautiful other country, and just a desire to continue to grow and expand on your spiritual journey. Plus a whole bunch of new friends, including me. We all hang out together. Even after the fact, like all of the groups I've done, we still have a group chat with every single one of them. I group chat with all of them all the time. Egypt is no exception. I still talk with the Greece people all the time, which was my very first trip last year. It's really beautiful and really connected. So yeah, if you want to journey with us to Japan, the information is going to be below on how to do that. And honestly, it's the investment into going with us to Japan is going to be the same investment, if not less so, than what you would invest going to Japan by yourself. And you have everything taken care of. Your accommodations, your transportation, meals, like all this stuff is taken care of for you. And you just, your excursions, and they're exclusive, incredible excursions that we otherwise wouldn't get to do, truthfully. You just get to show up and exist and be whisked around, and it's truly incredible. So please come with us to Japan. It's going to be so much fun. And then you'll get to be a part of this wrap-up video that I'll do for Japan as well when the time comes. Also, as this necklace jumps out, this is my new beautiful pendulum necklace. Look at that. It's a snake pendulum. Lacusta picked it out. She also picked out this shielding ring for me. Do you see that? These are actually from a company called Katori Life. They're ethically sourced, ethically made. They plant trees for every purchase that you do. Plus they're activated, and they're literally talismans. So I've been playing with them because they are really, really activated, and the energy is honestly wild. If you're interested to check out their whole thing, I'll put their thing below because I do have a discount code for them. So you should check it out because I am pretty in love with the jewelry. Cool. On that note, let's talk about Egypt. So Egypt was in and of itself just brief overview on my feelings about the experience. And I didn't chaos notebook this one. If you don't know what that means, check out my other videos, but I take notes in my chaos notebook and then kind of read from there. I didn't do that because I just lived this experience. So I'm going to try to make this as cohesive of a story as possible so that you understand it and it's like has flow. But if at any point I jump around, that's why it's happening, because I'm just trying to speak to you from my heart and address everything that went down and how magical and incredible it was. My big takeaways from Egypt initially. First of all, it was very much about surrender for me. Not surrendering, giving up on your manifestations or letting the universe carry you where it will. It's not that. That's not what I'm talking about at all. It's surrender in the sense that you're allowed to have the things that you want. You're allowed to trust the universe. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to kind of surrender to the magic around you and know that it's there and supporting you, and embrace that and surrender any false ideas of who you are or fears about different things. Like, it's just a stark realization and concreteness of what it feels like to be present truly in yourself and as yourself and in all of your magic. And I really needed that. On a personal level, I really deeply needed that. And my connection with deity work has only grown stronger. Deity work really is one of my passions. I have done deity work for so many years, and it only continues to get reinforced in its gravity for me. And that was really special to experience in Egypt, to go up to these huge temples dedicated to these deities that are almost completely intact still, and get to kind of honor those deities in that temple space. There's a man named Freddie Silva that I've worked with a couple times. He was on my old podcast, and he actually travels around the world and using actual equipment, test the energy waves and frequencies within temples versus outside of temples, and has proven time and time and time again how much different the energy within a temple is than the energy without or outside. The energy outside a temple is, and how actually going into a temple you can truly activate, you can truly open things up. And I can personally attest to that too, not just from this experience, but from many experiences, but especially during Egypt. The amount of activations received by not only me, but everyone on the trip during these temple visits was astronomical. Like, there's experiences that people had on the trip. Like, one person just cried and like had a deity reassure them, and another person basically saw a whole vision of stuff, and just all these beautiful experiences that left everyone feeling very connected and very open to both deities and themselves. And it was just incredibly powerful. So that was a huge takeaway for me right off the bat. The other thing is, I love the culture of the Egyptian people. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. I'm not talking ancient Egyptian culture. I'm talking modern Egyptian culture. We also got these really incredible, and I'll talk about them more as I go day by day, but we had these incredible cultural experiences with the local people of Egypt while we were there. And it was one of the highlights of the entire thing for me. It spoke to my soul. They're the kindest people I've ever met in my entire life, bar none. Like, just so kind, so loving, so welcoming. And that goes from our incredible host, Hani. His handle on Instagram is Travel with Hani Egypt, I believe. I will also link that below. But he was incredible. And I mean incredible in so many ways, which again, I'll talk about more in a minute. But getting his insight and his enthusiasm and his presence was one of the best gifts I've ever received in my whole life, is just having him as a guide on this journey. And I will never go to Egypt again without him as the guide, because he is so good at what he does. And he's an Egyptologist, and he knew all this stuff, and he was also very magical himself. We kind of brought it up to him like, hey Hani, like, this is what we're going to be doing, and we always do this with every host before we go on to any trip. And he embraced it and ran with it and knew so much information and helped us find all these magical things. And we're friends for life now. 100%. But he helped us get introduced to the culture. The way he explained things was so beautiful. We had lunch with a family in their home when we were there, and they welcomed us into their home with open arms. They're some of Hani's really good friends, and just we talked to them and learned about their customs, and that was beautiful. And we got to go to these small little villages while we were there, and just experiencing life in that way was so wonderful and just so lovely, and just really brought you present with everything. Plus, we also very intentionally, before we even went on this trip, made the decision to bring both a bunch of money to donate as well as a bunch of clothes to donate to the Gazan refugees, because no matter how many times we demand a ceasefire, apparently our government is choosing not to do that still. And the IOF is also not stopping, and that is horrific. And the one thing we wanted to make sure that we did is contribute to helping the people of Gaza in any way that we could, because we were so close. We were so close to them in Egypt. And we did. We brought a ton of money, and everyone on the trip donated clothes. And Hani was so thankful, and he took all of the clothes and the money and whatever to the camp where they're helping, like to a place where they're helping the Gazan refugees, and all of it is needed, and they wash and iron it and give it to them and pay for supplies that are needed for them. And that was just a beautiful experience. And Hani's mom helped us with that, which was just precious and incredible. Also, it was during Ramadan, and going in, I knew like the base level things about Ramadan. I didn't know a ton. I'd never experienced Ramadan. I am not Muslim. I don't really have Muslim friends anymore. I had some kind of in high school, but they never really opened about their practice. So I wasn't ever really privy to understanding a lot about how Ramadan works. And when we were first deciding to travel to Egypt, we found out it was during Ramadan, and we were kind of hesitant, like, oh no, are we respecting, like, if us going, is that disrespecting, like, a religious holiday for a culture we're not a part of? And they're like, absolutely not. Please come during Ramadan. It's the best time to come. And I mean it. It is. It is the best time to come. I loved being there during Ramadan. The culture is just, it's like a big festival the whole time. And, you know, they fast from sunrise to sunset, which props to all the guides. Fasting from sunrise to sunset, having to talk to us the whole time, and Hani especially, like, having to talk and tell us all about these things when he can't even have a sip of water. Like, it was commendable. But getting to, like, we got to hear the prayers broadcast the 5 times a day over all of the loudspeakers from every mosque in every town we went to, and that was really, really special. But also, when the sun went down and everyone got to have breakfast, they all broke their fast together. It was the most special thing to be included in. And we tried really hard not to insert ourselves in that space. Like, we tried not to go to restaurants to eat right around that time, so it could cater to the actual local people that like needed to have a space to eat because they all were eating together. But we got invited so many times to partake in breaking our fast with everyone, even though they knew we weren't fasting. It was so special. And I remember one of my favorite types of this, and I'll hold this memory so near and dear to my heart, because we were on the bus and we had a security guard, which we had a security guard with us every single day. They really protect their tourists and their tourism in Egypt. We had a security guard with us. We had the bus driver, and then we had Hani, all of which were Muslim. And they were waiting for the sun to go down and waiting for the prayer call to happen. As soon as the prayer call happened, they all pulled all of these fig crackers out of their bags, date crackers out of their bags, which it's traditional to break your fast with dates. They were like fig Newtons, but with dates in the middle. And they pulled all of it out of their bag, and they just shared it with, like, I was in like arm's reach, and they kept shoving the crackers at me like, eat. And I'm like, but no, you guys don't, you want to eat the food? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. We all share together. And it was just this beautiful, like, loving thing. And I honestly, I got a little teary about it just because I felt it was just such a beautiful thing. Also, there's a lot of equity and equality basically in Egypt itself. Egypt has true equal pay for men and women, and equal education for men and women. At one point we had to explain to Hani, like, how pay in the US isn't necessarily based on position. It's based on experience and based on kind of what the company decides to give you, and how you can't really talk to each other about what you get paid. And he was just baffled. Like, what are you talking about? You get the position, whoever's most qualified gets the position, man or women, doesn't really matter, they get paid the same. Like, very confused, which was really cool to see, and just a really neat thing to be a part of. Plus, it was a really cool blend of like past stuff and present stuff, where there's, horses and wagons all over the place, donkeys with people riding on them, right next to like brand new luxury buses and things like that, all together on the same road, which was just unique and incredible. All that is to say, if you had a chance to travel to Egypt to go experience that culture, go do it. And then also, of course, go experience the sacred sites and the ancient sites, which we did. There's a million things more we could have done. So what we did was kind of our introduction to Egypt, and we are going to be expanding that for future trips going forward, because there's so much more to see in Egypt and so much more things to learn in Egypt. And it's one of those things, even Hani said, like, Egypt is one of those places where you visit and you always come back, because you always have that pull to know more. At one point I asked Hani too, I was like, how much do you think we've actually discovered of the ancient Egyptian civilization? He was like, maybe 30%. This entire trip was a big lesson for me in really being present and open with my channeled history, because it is the thing I get the most flack for online, because people like to believe the history they were taught, because it makes them feel comfortable, because it's what they learned. And it helps, I think sometimes it helps with kind of like an ego thing or an authority over people, which the truth of history is, and this is what Hani said, which was like a grounding in for me of all of the different experiences I had while I was there, is all of our facts could be false tomorrow with one new discovery. And that's truly how it works. And so it doesn't make anyone's mode of understanding history invalid to do it in an alternative way, which of course I do through channeling, and then research backed historical, like, to back the history there too. And that's my system of doing it, and it was really validating to kind of hear that. So let me talk through it. I know I'm getting off topic. I could just gush and continue gushing. I know there's so many things, and I don't want to like get too far off topic. So on our way to go to Egypt, a tree fell on the road. Yeah. Not the way it was supposed to start at all. So we live up on top of a mountain. At the time, there was one road open to get out of my town. We got halfway down that road, and a tree had fallen on some power lines there. It was a whole experience that didn't need to happen. I won't go into the details of it because it takes way longer. It was one of those things like, what the heck? Why did this happen? Because we ended up being stuck on the road for 3.5 hours and effectively missing our flight. So we had to reschedule our flight for the next day, which caused us to get into Cairo instead of at 2 a.m., we got in at 4:45 p.m., which our welcome dinner that day was going to be at 6 p.m., which I ended up pushing it back to 6:30 p.m. So we got there at like 4:45. We rushed to the baggage claim because our bags also got hold on, I'll touch more on the flight. And then rushed to the hotel, changed clothes, and popped down for our meeting so we could go to the welcome dinner. So it was quite an extravaganza of getting across the world. So we ended up having to stay a surprise night in San Francisco because that's where we were flying out of. So we love San Francisco. It speaks to our heart. But I was just like, why did this happen? Like, why did the tree fall? This is such like an act of God type of situation that there's no, like, there has to be a reason that we are being kept back. And then we get there the next day, we go to get on the plane, they make us check our bags, which gives me anxiety because we travel in carry-ons. That's how we roll, my husband and I. And we do that so that as we go across the world, our bags don't get lost. Just makes the most sense. They had to check our bags. I was like, whatever, there must be a reason for this too. Of course there was. We get to JFK and we have a very tight layover before we're supposed to get on a plane to go to Rome, from then Rome to Cairo. And we are running through the airport with just our backpacks because they checked our roller bags. And a lady from Italian Airways ended up having to like escort us through security. And if we had had our roller bags during that, we would have had a very, very hard time getting through security very fast. So that allowed us to get through security as fast as we did to get on the plane in time, which was huge and wonderful. And that's why our bags got checked. Don't worry, they made it to Egypt. But by the time we get on that flight to Rome, which is the long one, JFK to Rome, it's like 8.5 hours. The entire plane's screens work for like entertainment except Weston's and I. They are completely dead. It's just the two of us in a row and the screens don't work. And they couldn't get them fixed for the whole flight. They also didn't give me a vegetarian meal, even though I ordered one. Like, it was just like a stressful kind of clusterfuck of a flight experience. Which is to say, I just rested and slept, which was obviously what I was supposed to do, which was like my guide like nudging me like, hey, just sleep, please. You need this. So I did. And then we landed in Rome, and the gate, this never happens. I've traveled a lot, and this never happens. The gate for our outgoing flight was 2 gates down from our arrival, which doesn't happen. I usually have to like run to the next, down the corridor at least, but it was just like casually right there. And another one of our travelers also ended up being on the same flight. So they met up with us and we were able to all travel together to Cairo. And turns out we landed in the terminal that we were not supposed to land in. So we had to like find our way to a whole other terminal, and we like walked around the outside of the building. So I'm like, okay, that's obviously why we were supposed to be on this flight, so that we could meet up with our traveler and we could all do this together and navigate this first big experience together. Turns out also because of that, I wasn't able to meet with the tour guide ahead of time, Hani. I was not able to meet with him ahead of time. So Krista met with Hani, and they ended up having like a 4-hour conversation. And Hani at one point told me it was like one of the best conversations of his entire life. It was so deeply needed. And had I not missed my flight, they wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to have that. And that was, I think, a big reason that tree fell, so they could have that space, which I am so thrilled, so deeply thrilled they got to have. And that night we went to dinner on a boat. It was really cool. It was a boat on the Nile. Our rooms were overlooking the Nile. It was incredible. And like you could hear like party music all night long. And it was such a neat experience. And we had delicious, incredible food. As a vegetarian, it's one of the easiest places I've ever traveled as far as finding vegetarian food. It's everywhere. All of the food is vegetarian. Not all of it. There's a lot of meat too. But it was so easy. There's always like 7, 8 options on any menu for vegetarians, which is so rare. It's so rare. I cannot express how rare it is. The next day we went to the pyramids of Giza. We also went to the Sphinx. We went to a papyrus shop where they showed us how they make papyrus. And we went to the Egyptian Museum of Cairo. Starting off, the pyramids of Giza. Oh, and we rode a camel. That was one of my favorite parts, actually. I loved riding the camel. I like riding.
It was at this moment she knew she f***ed up.
I'm not going to finish that sentence because that could be taken out of context. I mean, well, anyway. So we started our day at the pyramids of Giza. We got there really, really early. So we were one of the like first big groups to kind of come in. And we weren't that big. We were about 19 people. But the first like big group to come in. And you had the option of going inside the pyramid or staying out of the pyramid. Half the group decided to go in. Half the group decided to stay out. I decided to stay out. I'm really glad I did. First of all, walking up to the pyramids, you can feel the energy that they conduct. They are huge energy conductors. And I deeply, like, when I'm standing there, I was channeling it in, and I feel like they're much older than the way that they've been dated. And I did ask later on, and our guide did say, like, yeah, he thinks they're probably older too. And a lot of people think that they're probably older too than what they were dated. So we'll see if that ever develops into anything. But I was like, oh, these are bigger, ancienter than even what we think that they are, which is old anyway, but I think that they're even older than that. So I didn't go inside of the pyramids. By the way, you can just like walk up and touch them. I sat on the pyramid for a minute. Like, you can just interact with it, which is wild to me. But I stayed out and I was drawn to some tombs over to the side, and I was like, can I go over there? And they're like, yeah, whatever, like you can go do whatever. So me and a couple of people went to explore the tombs over on like the right side of the, if you're like looking at the pyramids to the right side, and they were like the generals and things like that. At first there was like the energy of like a guard that's basically been guarding this tomb for like thousands of years. Not a lot of energy, but very stoic, and I kind of was like, hello. Didn't want to talk to me. Not very talkative. I don't think he had a lot of energy left. It was kind of more of almost like an imprint, of like residual energy there, of like a commitment he made to guard this for life. Didn't take it lightly. I'll tell you what. I thanked him anyway because of him, I was drawn to see my first hieroglyphics of the trip, which was really cool and just felt really special. So I kind of just got to touch those and sit there for a second and just be like, holy shit, I'm in Egypt. You know, like you're walking to the pyramid and it hits you, but like touching the hieroglyphs on a wall, it hit me so much more. Just so much more, which was a really cool experience. And then we were kind of drawn around to the other side of the pyramid where there's this granite put together like slab platform thing. And it was like a gravitational pull. Like I immediately was like, I need to go touch that, which I guess we were allowed to do. I'm not 100%. There was a guard person, like in real life, like alive there. And when we went over there and we got on the slab and touched it and whatever, he didn't yell at us, but later on other people did it and he yelled at them. So I don't know if we were just like momentarily invisible to him or he like didn't care that we were doing it, or there was something about us where we were reverent with it. I'm not 100% sure, but we went and stood on the slab. And when I tell you, it was, you instantaneously were grounded, just like instantaneously, all the energy was like, whoo, grounded down. It was so calming and so soothing. And when I stood on the platform, I immediately got this vision of like beings like walking to the platform and like blooping out of existence, and then beings blooping into existence on the platform, and a lot of beings, of those beings, gathering around to like see the pharaoh's body essentially before it like went into the tomb that is the pyramid. And later on I asked Hani about that and he was like, yeah, that's exactly what it's for. That was the presenting platform of the pharaoh's body where they'd like have the gods bear witness to him a final time before putting him in the pyramid, which was a really, really cool thing to get to feel, and like validation for the vision I had just had, which was again channeled history, man. It's real shit. It's so cool. And also to see the layers of stuff that at the time, at that point in history, people could see gods and deities. They were concretely there. They were actually gracing their temples. You could touch them. They were higher self beings on planet in their higher self forms. So that's what made them deities. And so knowing that those beings were like literally walking there on the platform to see the pharaoh's body off, like it's really cool. It's really cool. And then there was these little pyramids at the back that were like calling to us, and it was the Queen's Pyramid, and it was basically like the pyramid itself calling to us, which was also very feminine, being like, look at me, like aren't I just as pretty? And they're much tinier but so pretty. So we immediately took pictures of her and gave her due. And then the inside the pyramid goers joined us. Very sweaty and very much full of back pain, but they did it. They got inside there. It was a tiny little tunnel that they had to like shimmy themselves through to get inside the pyramid. And we kind of walked around and we went and saw the next pyramid, which is like the middle pyramid of the two, which had a very different personality. Not gonna lie, had a very different personality than the first one. We went to Pyramid 1, and then we kind of went near Pyramid 2, and I was like, huh, this one's different. You can't go inside Pyramid 2. I guess you can, but it was closed, which was, again, fine. I wouldn't have gone in that one anyway, but it was beautiful and amazing, and then we hopped on our little busty bus. Then they bussed us over to go ride camels by the pyramid, which is where we practice a lot of, like, animal communication. We communicated with the camels. My camel took cameling very seriously. I'll put a picture of me on the camel. Look how good he poses. He's just, he took it very serious. He got to be the leader. He took that very serious. He kind of complained about the camel behind him quite significantly. Like, he was a camel on a mission. However, when I got off, I got to like rub on his face, and he loved that, which was really nice. I loved that too, because I love critters. So that was super duper fun, and just like a nice way to connect with animals, and really, again, ground into the experience of like, oh my God, we're present. We're here actually in Egypt, which we said together as a group like so many times throughout the entire journey. And then we went to the Sphinx. One thing that stands out very significantly to me about the Sphinx, first of all, the energy there is very different because it's kind of been muddled, I guess, in a way, between like the damage that was incurred from like, you know, we've heard about, I think, is it Alexander the Great and Napoleon? I forget. I'm tired. I got back like 3 days ago, so bear with me here. But that they did to the face, and also like the excavating and everything. It just feels like a lot of the like things that would be conductors of energy kind of been removed from the Sphinx site in a lot of ways. But we went through like the temple to get to the Sphinx and just kind of took some pictures there. But the thing that stands out most to me about the Sphinx, when Hani was introducing the Sphinx, he said that the excavation of the Sphinx say Sphinx 7 times fast. The excavation of the Sphinx was a gift from the American people to the people of Egypt, is how he said it. And it was so refreshing to not hear like the US government paid for this. It was like the American people paid for this as a gift to us, like we're a community. And that made my heart just like really full and happy. Then we went to the papyrus shop, which I cannot recommend enough. It was so cool. Like, not just that specific papyrus shop, but just like learning how papyrus is made. Like, go learn how papyrus is made. Go look it up. It's so mind-boggling. I always thought papyrus was like something you had to be gentle with. No, not even a little bit. She like just balled it up and like rinsed it out and like washed it off. Like, papyrus is erasable and waterproof. It was such a cool experience. And again, that like culture stop. Every shop we went into, we learned about whatever product they were making, and this was part of the tour. We learned about the product that was made in that store, why it's important to get it like authentically made, and then we had, of course, you had the opportunity to shop there as well. But it was so grateful. Even stores I didn't really buy a lot of stuff in, it was just like, oh my god, I'm so glad I got to learn this and know this. And every shop gives you drinks, and it's just really cool. It was just really cool. So we did that, and then we went over to the Egyptian Museum, which I will say, the Egyptian Museum at this point, all of us were really tired, which was good for getting some solid pings. Because when you're really tired, your walls aren't up as much, so you tend to get a lot more like spiritual energy coming in and communicating with you. You do have to maintain your protection, but your like blocks, as far as like blocking out information, is just not as prevalent. So we went there, met some interesting energies. Of course, I was immediately drawn to the Roman section because of course I was. The Roman section was just like, hello. So I went over there and channeled some of the statues in that sort of space. We did get to go see Tutankhamun's room, and you're not supposed to take pictures in there. I maybe took one, but it's fine. And you can see like the golden sarcophagi, which there's two, the inner sarcophagi and the outer sarcophagi, and his golden mask and some of his jewelry, which honestly, he's not particularly interesting. I hate to say that, but he's like really not, like from an archaeological standpoint, fascinating, because he's one of the tombs we've ever found that's been so completely intact with all of its treasures. But from like an actual like pharaoh, his soul was like so absorbed into the higher self at that point, there was no way for me to even talk to his like section of him, because it was such a thin life, which maybe I'll do a video about like soul life, how that kind of works. But it was such a thin soul life. There was so much thin energy there. Like his whole purpose was, this is going to sound really morbid, please don't take this the wrong way, but the whole reason he incarnated was to have a very brief, I think he was only like 15 or something by the time he passed, but to have this very brief rule so that he could like leave all these treasures so that we could learn from it later. Like that was the whole reason he incarnated, which is something I was channeling about while we were there, which is cool. It just gives you knowing, like, sometimes we don't understand our mission when we're here, but then we understand it when we've left. Like, oh, that's why. I remember now. Okay, I get it. That's why. And it took thousands of years for his to be realized, but thank goodness that was the mission he had. However, as far as, like, someone to talk to, like, there were more interesting beings about that I could channel in history-wise. They also showed us there's this material they made statues of. The only thing harder than this material is literal diamond. So in order to carve this material, they had to have some sort of diamond tools to carve and craft this material out of. None have ever been found. So there's a lot of different theories out there. A lot of those theories contradict one another. Personally, I think it was actually energy that did the carving, because energy was so tangible at the time that you could actually sharpen it and use it. And I think probably deities helped with that, even if they were minor deities in their higher self form, like holding space, actually energetically carving these statues and figures out of this one specific material. It's not all of them. It's just this one material. But just fascinating to hear that. I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense then with the energy and the way the energy moves, which was really cool. And then we went to this one room that had statues of like every single deity in the Egyptian pantheon. And we had everybody go and find what statue they were drawn to so that that deity could guide them throughout basically this entire journey. For me, I was, of course, immediately pulled to Thoth. If you have listened to any of my content on my podcast or followed anything along, you name it, you know that I've been having a weird relationship with Thoth since about September. And like, not weird in like a super weird way, but he's just been around and not been very talkative. I'm going to do a separate video on Thoth and my relationship with him and what I learned through Egypt and connecting with him. But I'm going to do a whole other video on him. But just know that was who I was drawn to, and I had a whole experience with him when in Egypt that I will get into in a different video, because it's going to take a whole video to honestly talk about. It was a lot. And then we got back to the hotel. We finally got to kind of eat and rest. And for me, I was very jet lagged at that point, so it was nice to eat and rest and kind of have some decompression time. that was day 2 technically. So then the next day we woke up and we went to the Luxor and Saqqara pyramids, which are the step pyramids. They're out further than Giza into the desert. We got to go through a village to go see them. This was one of my actual favorite spots that we went to. Like Giza, the pyramids of Giza was cool. Awesome. Glad we saw it, but it didn't have the same spiritual energy that a lot of these other places that we saw did. And they were so much more fascinating to me. Couple big takeaways from this day, because I don't want to make this video last forever. We got to go into I believe it was the Luxor pyramid. So Luxor and Saqqara. There's a couple other ones. But we went into that pyramid. And I went into that one, and it's beautiful on the inside. So beautiful. And it's the first time that the goddess Nut was actually depicted as the sky. Is inside of this, that we found, inside of this pyramid. And we were in there alone because our guide was amazing, and he got us there before anyone. So just our group was in the pyramid. Most of the group left, and there was like 5 of us. And they were struggling with like a block. And so we got to do a block, like I did a group block pull, Krista and I did, in the middle of this pyramid for this group. And we pulled it for ourselves as well, and it just like lifted, and you could feel Nut, like the goddess Nut, like so thrilled that we were doing actual magic in her space again. It was just like, oh my goodness, yes. Like it was this, she came and held hands with us like in the circle. She was so incredibly present as we like did this, and it just like funneled the block up to her for her to release. It was so incredibly magical. It was an amazing experience to get to do that and feel her presence there, and they felt it too, and it was really cool. Then after that, we went over to the bigger step pyramid, which I think the Saqqara pyramid, I forget the names, I'm getting them mixed up. I would have to go back and look at my pictures because I wrote little names on them. There was these big guardian things all over the place that had like these cobra heads. And again, not physicalized, we're talking spiritually here, but like they were everywhere, and they were really, really big, like taller or as tall as the pyramid themselves. And I was kind of like, hello, like, I mean you no harm. Like, thank you. And they were very aware of every person that came through and the intentions of every person. And the whole time that we were there, I just wanted to like tone and like sing, not like sing a specific song, but just like singing tonal style stuff. Just kept wanting to do that every time we went to a pyramid, every time we went to a temple, like on this complex. I just wanted to like sing in some way. It turns out that's what this complex was also used for. It was used as a healing place, where a lot of their healing that they did was toning. They'd figure out what your, how your energy was balanced and what you were needing, and then tone to you based on that in ancient times to balance out your energies. Which was so cool, because that's exactly what I was wanting to do, which was incredibly validating. Inside of that pyramid, and then we went to, there's these 2 temples on the sides. One was for the cobra, and one was for the vulture. That represents Upper and Lower Egypt. And they would take those statues out and put them in front of the pyramid on like festival days to honor the pharaoh, etc. But in those, you can go in and basically figure out what energy you're needing, because there's like these 3 windows, like 1 and 2 and 3, and you walk in and you could, whatever, when you look in the sides and see what you're like drawn to, and you see in the dark space. And it's really neat. And I saw a sun coming out of the dark space on the right hand side of when we went in there. But it was really interesting to see, because people who had very balanced energies, which I could know about them because we're channeling for them, would stare straight ahead in the middle. And then people that were kind of tipped out of balance, which again, it's not a gender thing, it's an energy thing, they would be attracted to one side or the other, and then they kind of balanced out, because there was a place where you can look at the statue and hear the vibration of the earth, and it like balanced out all your energies. It was really, really cool. And again, that's probably going to be a full other video, because I'm going to do a lot of breakdown videos on here too, but that was really, really neat. And I was drawn to, that was in the temple of, we did that in the temple of the cobra, and then I was drawn to the temple of the vulture, even though everyone considers it to be destroyed. Just because the roof wasn't there, it's not destroyed. So I went in there and did the bouncing again, so I got like bounced from both sides. It was a very neat experience. I was very drawn, very, very drawn to that place specifically. Of all the places we went, that and then the temple of Hatshepsut, which I'll talk about later, really were magnetizing for me, which was special. Then we went and had a delicious lunch at this really cool restaurant that like played us music, and they had this whole buffet, and it was super duper fun. And then we went and hopped on a sleeper train, which I've been on a sleeper train many times. Well, not many times. I've been on a sleeper train before. I've been on trains many times. I've been on a sleeper train before. And this was an experience. It was an experience I'm glad I had. I laughed so much. I slept not much. And that's okay, because we're taking the sleeper train down to Luxor. And some people slept really well. Some people did not sleep really well. I got a kick out of it because the bathrooms, which were, you walk into the bathroom, there's water all over the floor. You're flushing directly onto the tracks. Like, they're dirty. You need to bring your own toilet paper. It's like, you're shaking because it's a train. They have this huge, like, the window in the bathroom is all blocked out. And it just says, in English, enjoy the calming experience while you're going to bed, like struggling to wipe like in the bathroom. It was so funny to me. I laughed incredibly hard at that, probably more so than anyone else on the trip did, but I just thought it was like the juxtaposition was just so incredibly and deeply funny. Oh, I forgot to say also that Saqqara day we went to a place where they did essential oils, and they did it in the traditional ancient Egyptian way, which was so incredible. Like, the amount of stuff we have in our essential oils here is garbage. There, it's literally just like the base oil and the scent and the things, and they went through all the healing properties with us. It was really incredibly cool, and I definitely brought a lot of that home, and I will bring a lot home again the next time we go to Egypt, for sure, because I'm gonna use it constantly in everything I do. Yeah, so we all had an experience on the sleeper train. It was an adventure. And then we arrived at Luxor early the next morning, and I like threw on some makeup and stuff on the sleeper train, and we went straight from the train to Karnak Temple. Karnak Temple is the temple that has all of the pillars, kind of in almost like a forest vibe. Like, there's so many pillars that are covered in hieroglyphics, and you can walk all through them. But it's not just one temple. It's actually a temple complex. It's pretty freaking huge. Like, there's a lot of temples at Karnak. And we were there at sunrise, which is actually what Karnak was built for, was for sunrise during the spring equinox, which the spring equinox was literally the next day. And so we got to be there during the spring equinox, essentially during sunrise, which was, the energy was like, I already see energy all the time, but I could see it so much deeper in the air, just like radiating out of this space. It was honestly just really, really incredible. Really, really incredible. And Karnak was so interesting. Our guide, being phenomenal, took us exactly to the places that we needed to go. And he even remembered all the different deities that we each individually had chosen to work with and had chosen us, and was taking us to special points of interest for each of those deities. It was incredibly cool. We went into one part of Karnak that was the temple of Ramses something. There was many Ramses. I forget which Ramses it was. It's off to the right-hand side. But we went in there, and you go deep, 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 deep in there. And at the very, very back, there's these two rooms where barely any sunlight comes in. They only come in through like a porthole in the ceiling. And you immediately walked in there, and all of us were like, oh shit. Like, let's bow. There's energy here. And there was one, I'm very sure, held a statue of Sekhmet at some point in time, who's a lioness deity. I'm very sure it did. I don't know if we even have that statue anymore. I don't know. I tried to confirm that with Hani, and he thinks so. He knows that there was multiple statues of Sekhmet on property. We're pretty sure that one. And then the other one, I think, held a statue of Isis, because it also felt very energetic that way. If not Isis, it was probably Amun, which was the god of Luxor at the time. Either way, it was very much like, thank you for sharing our space. I left a crystal offering in there because I felt very compelled to do so. It was like, and it wasn't even the full statue. Like, the full statue wasn't even there. The circuit was broken. What I mean by that is, when there was a statue, this is something I channeled in during the Karnak day. So that's why I'm inserting this here now. Basically, temples were built as activations. So you would start at the beginning and go through actual energy activations. By the time you walked to the end of it, you were a completely different person. And they were used oftentimes for creating a new pharaoh, right? Inducting a new pharaoh, or honoring the pharaoh with like a transition point in his life or her life. Hatshepsut exists. Walking through that, you got activated. And a big part of that is they were using energy vortexes and crossing of ley line points on the Earth.
Well, hello there, friends. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to help you understand. Ley lines are lines of activated and magical energy that run around and through the earth that can be connected and tapped into. Now back to your regularly scheduled program. Have a magical day.
Surface and plugging statues into them to hold the energy of that deity for the activation. And we have broken a lot of those circuits. Like, a lot of the circuits of those have been completely broken. And because of that, we've lost a lot of that energy. And so these rooms, despite no longer having the statues there, still had so much of that vortex energy that was being pulled in. A lot of people got activated in those spaces specifically. And then we wandered through the columns. I had another deep realization about Thoth. And then we got to the place where there's this scarab statue, which usually scarabs are carved as hieroglyphics, but they're not made into statues. And this scarab statue is specifically for manifestation. And our guide was like, yeah, it's worked for me a ton of times. So basically you walk 7 times around this scarab counterclockwise. And he's like, I have manifested huge things into my life using this technique. Like, go do it. So we all did it as a group. We walked around this scarab 7 times counterclockwise, holding our deepest, strongest, truest dreams and desires in heart. And it was, by the 3rd time around, it felt like it was a whirlpool of energy, almost like you weren't walking yourself. The energy was now pulling you and you were just following it. And we did that 7 times around, and then we finally like all broke out of it together. And it was so cool. When I tell you, and I'm not going to tell these stories because they're not mine to tell, because I wasn't the only person that had this happen, but when I tell you, people from the trip got the things they were manifesting, some of them immediately, within the next 48 hours. It was that quick. The manifestation energy was off the charts, especially because it's right next to like the sacred lake of the compound. And so the sacred lake was like magnifying the energy, like pulling it out and upward. It was truly amazing and incredible. And then everyone had like free time, and so many people went off and had really cool experiences in the temple in a whole bunch of different places. Myself, Weston, and Krista actually were taken by our guide to a really, really cool experience. We had to kind of hoof it. Like we had to go way out into the complex for this and kind of bribe some people to get to go see some stuff. We're about to go see the secret statue in this complex, and it was an incredible experience. I met deities and saw visions and had a deity energy kind of enter my body and activate part of my soul, which I might do a video later on kind of my soul parts. It might be a Patreon exclusive. I'm not 100% sure, but this is something I've kind of been waiting for and something that I asked for to kind of happen on this trip, and it did. And then at the end of these wild experiences with these men that were like literally hiding us so that they wouldn't get in trouble. At one point we had to like stay in one of the rooms for a while, and they were like,
wait in this room. You have to wait here for like 10 minutes till the people go away so we can let you back
out. And we're like, okay. But we were like waiting in this room. It was really, really cool. They gave us these sprigs of wild basil to smell. They were like everywhere. And it was so grounding and relieving and just like relaxing into your body and being truly like, it was like your soul and your body melded into one in like the highest and best way. It was amazing. I loved it. I'm a different person after that experience, truly. And yeah, that was incredible. Then we went and checked into our amazing hotel. I gotta say, I love the vibes of Luxor. Luxor is I loved Cairo too, but really loved Luxor. The hotel was ridiculously haunted to the point that some of both the nights that we were there, some of the people, the cute girls or girl presenting people in our group got knocked on the, like someone knocked on their balcony window and knocked on their door. It was very much a ghost. We confirmed it like completely. Very much a ghost, which really fit with the channeling I had done, that there was a bunch of basically men ghosts like in the hotel, and they experienced it, like hearing their names called, things like that. It was really haunted, but nothing dangerous, if that makes sense. It was just like scuzzy old men ghosts being scuzzy old men, and everyone knew how to protect their energy and everything. But it was really cool to hear everyone validate each other in that way about those experiences. That was amazing. And then we went to Luxor Temple, which was also kind of right next to the hotel, and that was just, I was very, very lovely. I had another realization about Thoth while there via somebody else who had helped me with that in the group, which was amazing. Esme, you rock. and Kay, Esme and Kay both were incredible in that. There was a sanctuary at the very back of this temple where there's a vortex, and that's like a well-known or semi-well-known thing. There was even people like playing with their pendulums there a little bit beforehand, trying to see if the vortex would catch. Then everybody cleared out. It was just our group in this tiny temple thing, which was the first place where the whole time we had not seen anything like this, but the first place where the hieroglyphics actually depicted nude people, specifically nude women, which was really cool and activating. And we did an activation in this temple on this vortex with everybody's stuff. It was so neat. Earlier that day, we also went to a jewelry shop. We got our cartouches done. So a lot of people, or, other jewelry, a lot of people use that jewelry to hold on to the activation. So I got to do an activation in the Temple of Luxor at like an energy vortex. It was amazing. It was also one of the places where the Roman stuff really was present. So LaCosta was with me and she was like, this used to be so loud. Like I came here and this used to be all market stalls when I came here in ancient Rome days. And I was like, wow, it's not loud now. It's quiet. She's like, I know, it's so weird. There's even like an ancient Roman newspaper. It's basically like a board where they do the news and then they chisel off the news and they'd write the news and then they chisel off the news. It's for benefit there. And there was these like female guardians kind of present at this space. And there was a lot of men hustling for money, trying to get you to take a picture with them. So then you pay them for the picture, trying to take your phone to take a picture of something for you that you maybe couldn't reach, and then trying to get you to pay them for doing that. Lots of that was happening. And I was getting annoyed about it. And we went this one like side spot in the room. We were like looking at stuff and looking at a pigeon on the wall. And one of these guys went to come in and you could feel this guardian spirit go, no, and like shove him out. And he literally stopped and turned around and walked out of the room and didn't bother us again. And we were like, wow. Thanks. Like, we appreciate that. That was incredibly helpful. So it was neat. It was very, very neat. The next day, we had the option of doing a hot air balloon for sunrise, which we obviously did. And it was over the Valley of the Kings and Hatshepsut's temple, and Ramses II's temple, and the Colossal of Memnon. It was so cool. And we got there and we saw the sunrise in a hot air balloon on the spring equinox. And we got to witness it lighting up the whole world below us, have this incredibly peaceful hot air balloon ride, land in a field of alfalfa, hop off out of the basket. A little boy approached with a falcon that Weston got to hold. And then we were whisked away to the Valley of the Kings, which was amazing. The Valley of the Kings was so interesting because unlike the other pyramids we had gone into, these tombs were high ceilings, big pictures, and the energy was so different. It was so interesting because each of the tombs, we went into 3 tombs. You could go into more if you wanted to. We went into 3. And in each of the 3, it was like, hey, everybody feel out how the energy is different based on the person that created this experience. And they were so each one was such a distinct flavor of energy. Like the middle one was so heavy. They're all 3 Ramses. I forget the numbers. All of them are Rams. The middle one was so heavy, and even the art style was really heavy-handed and darker imagery and just darker colors and not as light. And then the other one was like really activated and tingly, and the other one was like visions of the afterlife and I value wisdom and knowledge and whatever. And especially the last one, I walked in and I was like, oh, this one goes deep. Like we were seeing maybe 7% of this whole tomb because it felt like it went way down into the earth, which was confirmed for me later on as well, which was pretty incredibly cool. Also got to see some of the guardians in that space. They were guardians that kind of do a lot of Egypt stuff. They're kind of outside of time. And they were in some of the tombs there, which were like helping healing people, which was also very interesting. Just really cool energy coming off the walls there. An honoring presence that was sort of in that space, which was fantastic and really cool to channel. And not a lot of deity presence anymore, but a lot of like, we revere this space, like be in this space and honor my life energy, which I liked. Then we went to the Temple of Hatshepsut, which is also one of my favorite things that we did. I can't quite yet describe how much I love this temple. It's built completely differently than any other temple, and which makes sense considering it was built by a woman. A woman who said, don't call me queen, I am a king. A woman who honored all parts of herself and gave Egypt the best 20 years in all of Egyptian history. Truly. Took the military and instead of making them fighters, made them negotiators. Made them bring crops to other people. Made everything have to be talked out and negotiated and handled, and created peace in the land completely. There was 3 sanctuaries in this temple. So the temple's 3 stories. First of all, we pulled up and there's this big, it's carved into the mountain. The mountain behind it immediately, like 4 of us were like, that used to be carved. I can see it. Like, obviously spirit seeing, could see the statues carved into the mountain. They aren't there anymore, but I asked and Hani says, we think so. We can't really find full proof, but we're pretty sure that was carved at some point. It's all eroded away now, but I felt it. Other people felt it. We were all like, the mountain was carved for sure. Also, there's tombs all around you, not just this temple, like genuine tombs everywhere. So it's 3 layers, and at the middle layer, there's 2 sanctuaries, one to Anubis, one to Hathor, and then at the top, there's a sanctuary to Amun, again, the main god of Luxor at the time. So we took our necklaces, or a piece of jewelry, and we activated it all 3 temples. And then there was a spot where in the middle of all of the triangle, you could go, and it was like a whole vortex of energy. It was really cool because it was between these 2 granite gates. it was neat. It was so neat. So we went to both of the temples on the middle level there, really activated the energy, which was really balanced energy. And then I went up to the top level to go into the temple of Amun, or the sanctuary of Amun, and you walk through the first granite door and it like peels energy off of you. Like you feel yourself being cleansed going through this granite door. And then in there was all of these, again, very feminine guardians of the space, and they were bitching about how there was no more roof, how there should be a roof so that the artwork doesn't get disturbed, and they hate that the sun beats down on it, which was really interesting. Then you go through the second gate, and it was again like exposing your most vulnerable self energetically, like it peels it off. And there's Thoth on the inside of this second gate, 2 pictures of him or carvings of him, like to bless you with wisdom, literally. You go in there, and in that space, it was the only representation that I had seen in the entire trip, including the museum, different tombs, you name it, of pregnant women and women giving birth. And I cried. I just cried. It was incredible. And just took a blessing there, activated my jewelry in that space, and then went out to go to the middle between the 2 granite gates, to go to the middle of the pyramid, basically, of energy that it was supposed to be conducted. And again, I got a deeper download of how the activation works through moving through temples and why hers was so different, etc. And I'm standing there activating my jewelry, talking to these guardians, getting a download of the history, and more of the guys who wanted to get money, like we're kind of hustlers, were coming up to approach me. There was, I think, 3 of them, but 2 of them were coming at like the front. And the guardians were getting pissed. And I looked at one and I was like, no, which they never took no for an answer at all. And she like shoved this guy away, and they all turned and walked away. And another person who was with us in the group was like, how did you do that? I was like, it wasn't me. Like, I didn't do it. They did. Like, the guardians did it. And then we got taken into this like sacrifice kind of room space, and they were there as well. And we kind of got to see, again, mind's eye, see how the sacrifices were done. It was incredibly cool. I loved that temple. There's just something about it that like hits my soul and resonates with me so strongly. And I'll expand upon that during my Thoth journey video that I do later, because this is already like an hour. But it was really powerful. And then we went to an alabaster shop and we learned how alabaster is created. We watched people create alabaster statues. I got a little figurine of Thoth over there in basalt that they also create there, which was really cool because a lot of people had gone through such transformational experiences with these deities to get so they could bring something of that deity home that was like good quality and amazing. It was so impactful. And then we saw the Colossi of Memnon, which were huge statues, very discombobulated and very put back together. So it didn't really have the same circuit, it was very pharaoh-esque statues. So they didn't have the same kind of cycling of energy that a lot of the other space did, but it was wild. And then we went and we had our farewell dinner sitting above the Alley of the Sphinxes, and we got to see the sunset on the spring equinox as well. And we broke fast with all of the people who were at the restaurant to break fast, and it was amazing. And then our guide got a cake for one of the people was having a birthday on our trip, and he's like, I'm gonna get her a cake for our final dinner. And we're like, wonderful. And he did, and I was thinking like it was gonna be like a cake, like, or a slice maybe. This thing was like this big, and he just like had them make it in-house for her, and they all did, and they all gave candles, and they all pitched in, and it was so amazing. So we shared cake and we sang and we had fun, and then we went back to the hotel and relaxed, and the next morning we caught a flight back to Cairo, which was a cool experience to do together as like a group, because that was like most of the plane was us, which was fun. And then we went to the Khan al-Khalili Bazaar, which is you're supposed to haggle, you're supposed to stand in your power, you're like, their whole culture is around haggling and getting the best price for things and not just accepting it and whatever, which was such a cool limiting belief exercise. Like, it was so cool. Like, the limiting beliefs you had to overcome in order to do that, it just ground you into like, you are confident, you are strong, you can do this. And everyone got to embrace that about themselves, and it was so fun and so loud and just creative and just amazing. And then we kind of had our final drinks, and Weston and I stayed for an additional day. Got to kind of see everybody off and just relax and be on the banks of the Nile. We also went on a Nile cruise when we were in Luxor. The Nile has some personality, let me tell you. She's an interesting river. And then we left and we landed in Rome, or in the Rome airport, so in Italy. We went to a villa for a night because we had like a 13-hour layover in Rome, and woke up to the most beautiful bird sounds I've ever heard. Maybe I'll insert a video of that here. So you can hear, potentially. Okay, and then we flew home. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences of my entire life. And I hope this video didn't bore you in any way. I know it's like just someone talking about their trip, but I hope it inspired you on how you can travel and grow at the same time, whether you do it with us or not. Like, if you want to join us in Japan, please join us in Japan. We would love to have you. But if you don't, if you just want to travel places, it doesn't matter if you're going to Egypt or you're going on a road trip 2 hours away. It doesn't matter. You can see the layers of energy around it. And when you're in the spaces, it's just so much more impactful. So I just encourage you to travel with your guides, ask for the help that you need, travel with friends you can talk to this stuff about, where you can validate each other and catch reads together. And it's just so magnificent and wonderful, and I can't express enough how grateful I am for all of it. So it was activating. I did a lot of channel history, got a lot of validation, and again, like I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I know you're like, but I've been watching this video forever, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. Genuinely, there were so many more things that happened that I'm still digesting and getting into, so I will be sharing all of those with you in different videos and things like that on across platforms, to stay tuned in that space. And yeah, if you want to travel with us in Japan, if you want to have an experience like this in Japan, it's going to be incredible. It's going to, like I said, really focus on your soul journey, your higher self, connecting those pieces. Go ahead. We would love for you to come. We would love for you to come. Payment plans are available, and honestly, it's a wonderful investment in your life. So the information's down below for that. If you want to channel deities more, we have Deity Academy. Information's down below for that. And if you're feeling called to some really fun activated jewelry, information's down below for that, as well as Patreon, all the things that I do. Cool. Well, I won't keep you anymore. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. But if you could like, subscribe, follow me, you know, do the channel-y thing, that would be super nifty. Sending all of the blessings to you. And remember, you are magical as fuck. Mwah! Bye-bye.